Good. I thought it was, Don, your counting was right. Thank you. So what we're going to do is just go through the program in order in which the composers who are present are represented, and they'll just stand up and talk for a few minutes about their pieces. This is an opportunity to actually hear a living composer. It's very difficult with the conceived one, but a living composer talk about their pieces, and just before you hear them. So we're delighted to have all these fine composers with us, and so we're going to start with Chris Fraley. So Chris Fraley has a work called The Plains, and you'll notice on your programs. Chris, take it away.
All right. Welcome. I'm Chris. Call me Chris. It says Christopher, but you know, that's for Google internet searches, so you can find that. The Plains. I've been writing choral music now for about 10 to 12 years. And one of the things that really always inspires me is poetry. And the poetry featured tonight in The Plains is from Adela Florence Nicholson. You're probably like, I'm not sure I've ever heard of her. She was from the turn of the previous century. She died in 1911, I want to say, something in that time frame. She was an English woman married to a gentleman who served in the British military. He was stationed in India. And so a lot of her poetry is written from the viewpoint of an English woman living in India. And as a result of that, she has all this beautiful imagery that to us is kind of exotic. And she does, I think, a very effective job of painting pictures with that. So The Plains is in particular built around imagery, and that's what initially captivated me with the poetry. And so what you'll hear tonight is my taking her imagery and trying to bring that to life through the music that accompanies the poetry. And so, you know, if I did my job well, when you're listening, you'll have an emotional response, and you won't necessarily know what caused the emotional response. And you know, I'll give a lot of credit to the original poetry, and I'll just take a little bit on the side for what I was able to do with it. And one of the neat things about The Plains, the music of the piece you'll hear tonight, is the extensive word painting that occurs inside The Plains. And word painting, what does that mean? That's when you use a musical gesture to directly reflect a concept in the music. So for example, the very beginning, this will be the easy one to remember, okay? How one loves these wide horizons. So that's the opening line of the poem. How does one paint something like that? You're looking out at a level land that just, you know, like Montana sky, I guess, you know, just stretches from horizon to horizon, unbroken. And so the way I initially paint that is with a pitch, constant pitch. The melody is a single pitch for initial period until I have to do something else to keep your interest. And actually that line ends with the C. What happens to C? The waves crashing. So C, and so that's another word painting in the music. And the piece has like, I think I counted like 50 word paintings throughout it or something like that. So there's quite a bit more than I normally do in music. So I encourage you, as you're listening to the piece, read along with the poetry and listen for these bits of word painting, and of course, enjoy the music and the poetry.
Thanks, Chris. Next up is Sheila Bristow, and Chris. Sheila Bristow, who has a work on the concert tonight called Fair as a Dove for Three-Part Women's Choir.
I wrote this piece a number of years ago for Seattle Pro Musica, and it has been performed by a number of choirs in the area, including Cascadian Chorale, in an ATV version, which you sang, right? So it's really fun to hear it crafted by different conductors and get different takes on it. I've been asked a couple times if I like the term woman composer. I think John brought that up one time. And it's an interesting topic in today's environment. And I just want to say when I was an undergrad, if you opened your music history text, there would be very, very, very few women composers. And they were usually someone's sister or wife, you know. That has changed now, but I think one of the cool things about discovering the wealth of music composed by women over many centuries is there are a lot of convents in history where there's a lot of music making going on when you sing every day together. Sometimes they had money, sometimes they had very skilled people. So when I was writing this piece, I just had that in my mind as sort of an imaginary group of women who sang together, improvised, had a composer amongst them. So it sounds sort of chant-like with some variations. Probably no one did the 7/8 section that I wrote in the middle, but just go with the flow. So that was my idea on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Sheila. Now we're going to move to a set of composers who is always a delight to host for these concerts and for these pre-concert panels. And that is the winners of our Student Composition Awards. And we've got 3 of them tonight. All of them could be here, which is wonderful. And so we have 1 high school winner, and we actually have co-winners in the undergraduate category. We did not have a winner in the graduate student category. But I'm going to say a little bit more about our student composition program, our awards program, a little bit later at the beginning of the second half of the concert. But I'd like to start with James Pecor, who is a senior at Jesuit High School down in Portland, Oregon, and has happened to be sitting right next to me. James.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is James Pecor. I'm from Jesuit High School, all the way down in Portland, Oregon. I just got here this morning. That's wonderful. Thank you all for having me. And I arranged a piece called yet another arrangement of the Battle of Jericho. Now, I grew up going to Catholic school and being raised Catholic my entire life. And when I was little, I would always find those detailed, beautiful, lush illustrations of children's Bibles to be wonderful. And I can remember the Battle of Jericho very clearly because I'm a very introverted person and I'm a very pacifist person. So seeing the image of an entire community march around a wall resolutely for 7 days, knowing that they'd been lost as a people for 40 years, and then after shouting at this city's walls for 7 days, they finally just tumble down. That is the strength that music and the choir has the ability to impart on people, on introverts, because you have a host of wonderful musical extroverts marching around on you, tearing down your walls. And also in terms of a nation. So I wanted to bring that artwork to life with a new arrangement of this. And I wanted to pay homage a lot to Moses Hogan, since Moses Hogan's arrangement of this piece is legendary. And as soon as I discovered that Moses Hogan passed at, I think, age 45, I was just overcome with an odd amount of grief for not having known him, just because the amount that his music, as well as so many others, but his music has spoken to me really touched me. So throughout the piece, throughout his arrangement of the piece, he takes the main traditional melody, which has been handed down throughout spirituals for generations. Joshua fit the Battle of Jericho, which just rises from bottom to top. He takes that and places it in the women's section, and then has this tumultuous, storm-like section with the tenors and the basses going on that I just love. I wanted to echo that, but I also wanted to make it doable for my high school choir. So what I did was I took the traditional melody of Joshua fit the Battle of Jericho, and I put it into the bass section. I inverted what Dr. Hogan did. And then I built a tenor part, alto part, soprano part, and then I wanted 4, this is the number 4. I wanted 4 gospel singers singing throughout to represent the ram horns and the sheep horns, the primary gospels of God chiming in throughout. And then at the very end I have an instance of musical stretto, because I love melodies, but I absolutely just love when melodies overlap each other and when they connect into this woven tapestry of all the same thing, but just slightly different. or in different spaces. So you have the 4 different melodies come over each other, absolute silence, and then the entire choir comes together to finally tear the walls down. Yes, and it's been a wonderful and shocking opportunity to receive this award. You called me, and I think I was asleep at the time. No, I know I was asleep at the time. So I woke up, and I remember wanting to scream, but not being able to. I was just so awestruck because the school I'm from is known for more sports and academics, so it's not really the type of environment where music or even where choirs have the same amount of importance. So it's just an incredible honor to be able to be here. And I'm a senior in high school. I'm still really young as a composer and really nervous. I don't know how to make a website or copyright things. But I'm overwhelmed with joy to find such a wonderful community of people. It really allows me to feel more comfortable letting my own walls down. So thank you all for that.
And next, if you look at the beginning of the second half, you'll see that we have Christina Nelson next, who has set a lovely, lovely text by Sarah Teasdale in her composition, A Little While.
Well, thank you, John, for having me. It's an honor to be here. It's a thrill, a joy. So many other adjectives can be used to describe this moment. As John said, I set a text by Sarah Teasdale called A Little While. And actually, this piece started with melody. And I was struggling to write this. I had an assignment and to write a piece. And where do you start? So many options. And back in March 2017, we had a guest composer, Eric Eschenwaltz, who I am now honored and thrilled to call my friend. I sat down with him and we talked. I was like, I don't know where to begin. I just know I have to do this. And whatever melody I write down is not working. I don't know what to do. And he told me, you have to let it happen. Yes, sit down and have a schedule and have a time and write your music. But just let it just play around on the piano, and it'll come to you. It'll come to you. So later that night, after that conversation, I was thinking back. I crawled into bed, and I realized I had this melody going through my head. And at first, I said, "Oh well, I'm really tired, so I'm just going to go to bed, and I'll write it down in the morning." And then I had the voice of my professors and Eric's and other people saying, if you don't write this down now, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. So I got up and I wrote down what you will hear tonight as the mezzo-soprano solo. And I sketched out an additional melody. I had no text for it, but I felt really good about the piece that I had started. And I went to bed, and I excitedly went into my composition lesson later and showed it to Dr. Utes, who is here. Thank you for coming, Dr. Utes. And we started looking at text and came across A Little While by Sarah Teasdale. And I was amazed and overjoyed to find that it fit with the melody I had already written. And from there, the rest is history. You'll hear it tonight. And as I was exploring the text and exploring the options for melody and harmony, I found myself relating to the text. And a little while when I'm gone, my life will live in music after me. It's the first bit of the poem. And I started thinking about how I can relate it to my life, because to me it is very important for music to reflect emotions and to bring that out to the audience, from the listener, as well as the composer. And I found myself thinking about, thinking about my grandparents. I lost my grandparents when I was 7 years old, and many people say it gets easier as you get older and continue on, and it does not. I think about them more and more every day. And because of that, in a way, their lives have lived on in a song for me and my family, and you'll hear that in the piece. It goes from major to minor, and it represents an uncertainty on how to continue on after we've lost a loved one. And I'm not going to spoil the end. You'll hear the end of the piece. But there's this lovely realization in that you can continue on, but you keep them with you in your hearts. And that is what is important.
And thirdly, our third student composer, co-winner of the undergraduate category, is Nelson Green, who is a student at Central Washington University. And I believe, Nelson, you wrote both the text and the music, which is unusual, I think, for most of us. We're not composers, lyricists, but so this is a kind of a special piece. And I think when a composer writes their own text, it somehow makes it that much more personal. I think these pieces are always personal for us in our search for texts, but when you write your own text, it seems to me, I've never done that, it seems to me it might be even all that more personal. So, Nelson.
I can guarantee this won't be as eloquent as anything that is stated, so we'll just start off with that. Yeah, I couldn't find a text I liked, so I was like, this is way easier than searching around through websites. Yeah, I don't know, I just, a couple years ago I was working up at a camp in Leavenworth, and I would have to get up to work on Sunday mornings at like 6 a.m., so I'd roll out of bed 5:45, and there's nothing up there. It's just a little camp, there's the dining hall and a couple lodges. So I'd roll out of bed, put on my boots, and I'd walk outside, and it was just quiet. And here, you can say something's quiet, but you can still hear a fan, or you can hear the lights, or whatever. It was just quiet, and you could look up, and there's so many more stars than you could ever see in the city, Yeah, and so I just got this really cool feeling of I was really small, and it's just quiet, and it's still, and it's very peaceful. Yeah, so then, yeah, I was told by Professor Vijay Singh up at Central about this competition and said, hey, I know you're interested in writing. I mostly have done vocal jazz writing, so this was a little bit a step in a new direction. He said, hey, if you want to write something, and yeah, so I just kind of started thinking about it, mulling it over in my head, and I just kind of wanted to write something that was kind of relevant no matter what's going on, because in the world right now things are just kind of scary, kind of sad. Whatever just came to your mind, yeah, that's what we're all thinking about, And so I think that in this world we look out and we say, I can't really do anything. I can't travel here, I can't save these people, or I can't change political climate. But I'm going into a store, I can hold the door open, and someone does something nice for me, I can say thank you, I can tell someone I love them. And I think that that's kind of the only hope we have for making this world a better place, because we just kind of have to show as much love as we can, and hopefully that'll be enough. So that's kind of what inspired the text, and yeah, I just wrote harmonies that I thought would fit that. I don't know, nothing fancy. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed my piece, and thank you very much.
We have something in common with our pieces,
Oh, yeah,
our two
perhaps.
pieces, and I'm going to ask you, would you be willing to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, do I have to stand up?
Dedication? No, not at all. I'm not. Without knowing it, and my piece was written, gosh, 3-4 years ago, a piece called Sing to Me. And then Nelson wrote his piece just last year, was
Yeah,
it?
last December.
Last year. If you wouldn't mind telling about the dedication.
Yeah, so I'm a transfer student from Edmonds Community College, where I sang under Kirk Marcy in a group called Soundsation, and then the classical choir there as well. And then for my kind of pre-fall observation experience as an education major, I observed with his wife, Lori Capello, and they've both just been just huge second parents to me in just real cool ways. So I dedicated my piece to them.
Thanks, that's great. And next, we have Don Skirvin. Now, you got all these student composers. These are not premieres, right? These are not world premieres, no. They've all been performed or recorded, right? So, would you consider yours a world premiere?
With a professional choir, yeah.
Okay, good. Let's call it that then. Let's call it that. Don has a world premiere tonight, and it's been really interesting the way that this came about, because it was kind of a piece in waiting. Yeah, so maybe you could talk partly to that. But, John Skirvin.
So, this piece is from a set of pieces. The set is called Choral Nocturnes. And my point in writing this was to think about night songs and how that worked. 3 of those pieces are completed. The first one was performed a year ago. This is the 3rd movement, which will be performed tonight as the world premiere. So again, they're night songs. The text itself comes from the poetry of Gordon Abshire, a dear friend who passed away in 2005. I've written a number of settings of his works. He's quite a talented poet. And as you will see in the program notes, there are 5 poems. I call them haiku because they have that flavor, although the structure is not quite haiku-like. It certainly has that feel to me. And the arc of the piece is dark to light. So it seemed to me that this was a good way to talk about a nocturne, a night piece, ending in daylight. So the way this works is there are 5 separate sections. The keys, as I visualize them, are dark keys to begin with. They're like A flat minor and C flat, they're D flat and B flat minor. And it works its way through sort of the minor modes to the end where the sunlight finally occurs. And you end up in E flat or E flat Phrygian or Lydian mode at the very end. And that's a little bit too much musical detail for most of you right now. So the idea of trying to come up with a concept, as you can see from the poem, it's not about the nighttime, it's going from the darkness of certain things, the darkness of a storm, the darkness of the mind, where memories become inaccessible. And then you move into a time where there's a darkness with a hand ripping plum blossoms down. But the good news is that it still gives fragrance, so there's a little hope there. By the time we get to the 4th poem, we're talking about lonely night, persuaded to the warmth of dawn, and finally we end up with the last poem where we see light coming through new leaves in a tree. So there is a journey involved in this. There's no theme that links any of these. There are 5 connected and somewhat interrelated musical ideas, but you should have a sense that each piece is sort of each poem is its own piece. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and finish with the 2 pieces I have on the concert. I'm going to direct your attention to the next to last piece on the first page. There was an old person of Brussels. And this is one of the shortest pieces I've written. But even at that, I had to repeat the text one time through. Limericks are not epic poetry, so one has to figure out, one of the challenges is how do you get enough music to actually make it worth setting. And so I wrote 3 pieces for a men's choir, and I found this enormous set of limericks by Edward Lear, who's a 19th century, I guess he's a limerist, a limericist, what would you call him? He focuses on limericks, and he's probably written more limericks than any other poet. And these weren't just collected, these were things that he came up with. So I stumbled on this one, there's a bit of a pun in that, but called There Was an Old Person of Brussels who lived upon brandy and mussels. As he ran through the town, he knocked most people down, which distressed all the people of Brussels. It's a completely silly piece. But I wanted to paint that picture, talking about text painting, right? I wanted to paint that picture. I won't tell you what I did, but I think you'll hear it. And the piece is based on what I would call a perpetuum mobile, which is like a Mobius strip, but it's a perpetual motion machine, as it were. So you'll see how that plays out. I'll let the music speak for itself. The other one I want to speak about is the first piece on the program, the opening piece called Sing to Me. This piece was commissioned by, is Kirk Marcy here? He's going to try to come, or maybe Laurie. I hope they'll be able to make it. This piece, excuse me, was commissioned by Edmonds Community College. And when we first talked about it, it was to celebrate their Committee on Arts, Culture, and Outreach. I think it was 10th anniversary, something to that extent. As we talked more about the piece, we met and Kirk said, okay, this is going to have to change a little bit because Laurie has just been diagnosed with cancer. And all of us in the choral community know about this and pray for them and support them as best we can. And so he said, well, I'm going to have to take a little break from planning this piece. I don't know where this piece will end up, but I have a feeling that it's going to be partly about this, partly about whatever experience we have. Several months passed by. I had seen both him and Laurie during that time, and I did not pick a text during that time because I wanted to see where things would go. And it was quite an extraordinary journey. For those of us who follow Laurie on Facebook, we know her incredible faith, her unflappable faith. They, as a couple, through this, are the quintessential example of how to support one another through something like this. And my admiration for them is endless. So when we got back together, we said, okay, here's what I want it to be about. He talked about a number of things, celebrating life, celebrating relationships, in addition to the original purpose of the commission. Now I'm spending a lot of time giving you the backstory because backstories are so important to what we do as composers who set text, because it's what generates how we choose the text. That search for the text, as you say, you couldn't find a text, so you wrote your own, so that's a very pragmatic way to go about it. But this search for the text is always the starting point, I think, for all of us. So I went out, yes, on the internet, and I went to Google, or was it Bing? Any Microsofties here? Bing. And I typed in hope and several other adjectives that Kirk gave me when we talked. I said, how do you think of this piece? What do you want this piece to be about? And there were several themes. So the one that I typed in was hope. And up popped a text by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. Anybody heard of Ella Wheeler Wilcox? Yeah? Right? Okay, so is it laugh and the world laughs with you? No, see, I never got that one. Cry and you cry alone. Thank you. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Cry and you cry alone. That's Ella Wheeler Wilcox. We probably don't know anything else by her, but I found this poem, and it's an extraordinary poem. I want to read it to you because this is the starting place for the piece. And I want you to notice as I read through it, all of the iterations of Sing to Me. This is a very insistent text. It's a very encouraging text. This text talks about the power of song, the power of singing to one another, metaphorically, literally, the power of all of us who are in the choral world know the power of singing together in a choral group, singing with a single purpose in mind. There is no competition, it is pure collaboration, it is pure joy, it is pure love. And it's an extraordinary experience. And then we give that to you. We give that to the audience, and that completes the circuit. So I want to read this, and keep Kirk and Laurie in mind. Maybe Laurie saying this to Kirk. Sing to me something of sunlight and bloom. I am so compassed with sorrow and gloom. I'm so sick with the world's noise and strife. Sing of the beauty and brightness of life. Sing to me, sing to me. Sing to me something that's jubilant, glad. I'm so weary, my soul so sad. All my earthly riches are covered with rust. All my bright dreams are but ashes and dust. Sing to me, sing to me. Sing of the blossoms that open in spring, how sweet the flowers blow, and how the long lichens cling. Say, though the winter is round about me, there are bright summers and springs yet to be. Sing to me, sing to me. Sing me a song full of hope and of truth, brimming with all the sweet fancies of youth. Say, though my sorrow I may not forget, I have not quite done with happiness yet. Sing to me, sing to me. And then it changes tone, and you'll hear this in the music. Lay your soft fingers just here on my cheek. Turn the light lower, there, No, do not speak, but sing. My heart thrills at your beautiful voice. Sing till I turn from my grief and rejoice. Sing to me. Sing to me. It's an extraordinary poem. And I think those of us who sing, those of us who are in this world, those of us who have been recipients of the power of singing, know what this poem is about. And I just couldn't help but think of Kirk and Laurie when I read this poem. And so each time Sing to Me comes back in, it gets more insistent. And it goes into brighter and brighter keys. It will modulate up and up and up until it's this very bright, hopeful chorale, essentially, until it gets intimate there toward the end. So there you have Sing to Me. I want to thank you all for coming. I think it's one of the largest crowds we've had, so thank you for coming to this. I want to thank all our wonderful composers that we get to go in now and hear their beautiful music. So thanks all, and I hope you enjoy the concert.
Joseph and Jacob Energy. Right? I'd like to hear just that. Starting to exist. Go on and talk. 1, 2, 3. Go on and talk about your kings of Gideon. Go on and talk about men of Saul. But done by God of Joshua at the battle of Jericho. Oh, when Joshua hit the battle of Jericho. Want to do your little speech?
So you should be envisioning a palm tree swaying as you are singing it. It's sort of a step touch, so that if you think it, you don't have to do it, I guess. If you think it, it'll actually sound not as stiff as it's sounding right now. So it's not right? Like the accent is on where you would step if you were dancing, and the rest of it just goes away. So just feel that as it's happening. Yeah.
You're good at the answer.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. I don't know what this is, but we have. He posted this YouTube thing. James, like, that's me forever. And in your case, I don't know what else you guys are doing. Maybe that's it. I'm not the answer. That was a big stall for our can't say during the concert. So, still fun. It's just going to be really something. It's dark and dangerous, right? It's, I don't want you to get dark and dangerous. Some people driving forward. Some of you haven't done any shape dance singing, and that's too bad. It needs to have more feel. Ba, la, 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 those 4 syllables, ba, mi, re, no. Fa, sol, very good. It's a tetrachords. Because right now it's still a little too refined. You got to think of yourselves being farmers that are on a tractor all day long and going Krista. Those pickup notes are so important to propelling the phrase forward. And as soon as you pull back from the spring, it kind of dies. Okay? The harder singer, Jane, his but she said that she was going to come by.
All the staples are
as soon as you come in, you got to fill out an app. And some of you are waiting for your neighbor to do it. Can I just hear that? I want to hear how one, which is an A effort. That's right, as I approach everything, you have to just call out. I want love. Okay, we are going to go downstairs and
Gentle the Lord 2000, and this will be our 18th, 17th or 18th, I'm not sure, Student Composer Awards Program concert. We started that also in 2000. As you know, or those people who have been around with Opus 7 for a while, our very first concert in 1992, we performed some pieces by Northwest composers. It has been something that we very much value, is to cultivate this great artistic wealth that is in our region. And we also want to provide some support and some encouragement for young composers to write music for choirs. And so to introduce our program, I'm going to invite our composer in residence, John Ulizen, my cohort in crime, to come up here and to introduce our student composer.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you all for being here tonight on what would otherwise be an evening where you should be out enjoying the spring night. And so for those of you who were out on your boats today and took your boats back into the dock early, we appreciate you being here. How many took your boats out today? So, I think it's 19 years. I counted today. So it started in 2000, and I think we've come all the way to 2018. 19 years, almost 20 years, we've been doing this Student Composer Award. And as Lauren said, this award was put in place, my experience as a composer at the university level was, you were not asked to write a poem. You didn't write a poem. You maybe wrote solo voice music, but it was mainly instrumental. So one of the things, I know one of the visions that Lauren had for this was that this would be an encouragement to students at the high school, at the college, undergraduate and graduate level, to compose poems. And this year, we're pleased to announce that the Student Composer Awards have been renamed the Robert Standard Memorial Student Composition Award. Let me tell you a little bit about Bob Standard. He was a dear friend of Opus 7. He sang tenor in the choir for many years. He was on the board of directors for Opus 7. He helped adjudicate these very awards for many years as well. He was a mentor to a number of us, particularly to Lauren. Very, very deep relationship they had. He was also the longtime music director at this church, chorus master for the Seattle Symphony Chorus, director of choral activities at Western Washington University, amongst his many, many other accomplishments. It's fair to say that Bob Standard was a choral institution in the Northwest. So we're honored to name this award in memory of him and to honor him. Let me just read to you the goal, the stated goal of this award. To encourage young composers who are currently enrolled at the high school and university level to compose choral works and to provide an opportunity for those composers to hear their works in the context of a public performance. And then the award includes not only public performance, but also a cash award, which the boss will pass out. You can pass out on But this idea of having a public performance, being a composer is a rather solitary task. You sit and you compose in silence, except for the music you hear, and alone. So to get this to connect it all up with the performers and with the audience ultimately, to connect that full cycle is so important to young composers, to hear their music. So I would like to say that we are pleased to have with us tonight all three of our talented young composers. So please help me welcome them to our stage. Multiple talk to one another about all the things that they do compositionally. So that's the other thing about this, is that it develops some bonds, not only between them, but also between all the other composers. So our first winner, I'd like to introduce James Lepore. He's the winner of the high school category. He's a senior at Jesuit High School in Portland, Oregon. And in addition to the performance, James is receiving a cash award of $300. So James, here you go. He gets a lovely certificate. Send that to you, and then you can cross over to Lauren, and he'll give you the rules. We did plan it. It just happened. Sometimes we have one of each category, high school, undergraduate, and graduate. This year, we had 2 undergraduate winners. Both of their pieces were so lovely and were such talented young composers, so we decided to go ahead and award the both of them. So Christina is a senior at Pacific Lutheran University, a wonderful choral school in the area. She studies composition with Professor Gregory Youth, who is here tonight. You know, when your professor shows up, that's a great thing. That's support. She's graduating this spring with a Bachelor of Music in Education, right? And in choral. Bachelor of Music in choral education. And in addition to performance, Christina is receiving a cash award of $500. So, oh, boy, I don't want to do that. I hope you didn't hear that as loud as I did. So Christina, here's your dedicated to the same couple gives you an idea of how special these people are to us and how much we love them. So we're so grateful that you're here. So in addition to the performance, Nelson is receiving a cash award of $500. And here's your certificate. And congratulations.
must be a night without